Welcome to this latest video in the Bio-Inspired Materials playlist, and I'm going to talk about something that has always fascinated me, and that's got to do with how the chameleons change color. So in this video I'll talk about, first of all, why should it change color, so what's the purpose of it, how do they physiologically do it, and also how do they know what color to change to. So generally colors in a chameleon are regulated by a complex interaction of, first of all, hormones, temperature, and the central nervous system. So you can see in the image over here that a chameleon can exhibit many different colors. So it's linked to environmental factors, so think of, for instance, the temperature, but also to its emotional state. So what color is a happy chameleon? Well, if you look at the picture on the first slide, you will see it's green, and this is also how it's normally shown that a chameleon has a green color, and that actually means that it's in its happy state. So it's relaxed. But you can see, for instance, if it's interested in mating or there's something exciting happening, it gets more bright color. So for instance, switches on like a yellow and red. But then if it feels frightened, or for instance, if it's depressed or scared, you will see that it turns to brown or darkish color. So that's not a good sign. So what's the purpose then of these different colors besides what you're seeing here? So the main thing that we think of, and this is not just with the chameleon, but with other animals that exhibit this behavior, obviously it's very useful in terms of camouflage. Then it helps them to communicate with each other, and it is related to stress and to mood. So think of, for instance, here you can see in terms of mating that it wants to attract other ones by showing very, very bright colors, but also they can show when they're stressed, so that helps with their social behavior. Then if you think of thermoregulation, that's the same as, let's say it's a very warm day, it's in summer, you wouldn't go outside in a black t-shirt either. You would use some other colors. So first of all, if it's too warm, they can kind of change color, but also what they can do, if they know they're going to have some activity later, they can actually turn to a darker color and absorb more light so they have more energy. And this is all like in all animals that exhibit these color changing behavior. So there's many more. Think of, for instance, squids, other marine animals. These are exotherm, which means that they can't control their own body temperature. So this thermoregulation is actually very important for them. So what's the physiology of this color change? Now, in a chameleon, you have the chromatophores. In this case, they have three main types of chromatophores, which are specialized localized cells in the skin that contain pigment. So each of them is associated with a different color. And what's so unique about the chameleon is its neurological control, which means it can contract and expand the cells. So what happens if you have the pigment in there, it can disperse the pigment, so it can actually reveal these colors, or it can mask certain colors, and that's how it can get these very unique patterns. So this works very locally. So for instance, if you would heat up a chameleon from one side, you would only see that one side actually changes color in order to counteract this temperature effect. So very locally induced. But then also hormones play a very important role. So we know that adrenaline contracts the blood vessels, which means that it also changes the dispersion of these cells within the skin. So I mentioned before stress induced, so it can get darker to absorb more heat when it needs activity, but also social signaling, so indicate to other ones when they're stressed or when they're interested in mating. So it's a very complex range where you can see lots of different factors come into play. It's not just this neurological control, it's also related with hormones and temperatures. So how does a chameleon know what color to change to? So it's equipped with a very special skill set. So it's got like 4 very distinct type of sensors that actually help it with that. And the first one here, you can see very colorful eye. They have mobile eyes that can move completely independently, so they can see the environment from all different angles around. So when predators are coming from behind, it's able to move the eyes exactly to where it wants to be. So they have color vision, which is obviously very important if you want to change color, but they can also detect UV light, which is the light that we can't see with our eyes, which helps with controlling their temperature. So I mentioned before thermoreception, so they have special heat sensitive pits around the eyes, again to help them with making sure they stay the right temperature. The skin is very sensitive, so like our skin is sensitive to temperature, but also to humidity and to touch. And then finally, the chemoreception is very important. So think of chemosensors. They have a very highly developed sense of smell, which is another kind of skill set that they have all together in order to be very aware of their environment and making sure they can adapt it as quickly as possible. So very intriguing how a chameleon can do this, and from this we can learn a lot and develop some interesting senses ourselves that are inspired by this very fascinating animal. Thanks for watching, and do have a look at other videos in our playlist where I discuss more bio-inspired materials or how actually the animal kingdom has inspired scientists to develop new products.